Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Earth Defense Station Meridian and watched the stars through the giant window. He had been staring at space for 20 years, but today something felt wrong. The usual calm of deep space had been broken by urgent messages coming from the outer colonies. Each transmission brought worse news than the last. The first message came from New Austin Colony, where Commander Bill Thompson reported strange ships appearing near their planet. These ships were huge and moved in perfect formation like they were. Controlled by one mind, Thompson said his scouts tried to make contact, but the alien ships just ignored them completely. Then, without warning, the aliens started attacking. Jake called Admiral Lisa Carter on Earth right away. Her face appeared on the main screen, looking tired and worried. She had been getting reports from 12 different colonies, and they all said the same thing. Unknown ships were attacking human settlements across the galaxy. The aliens had better weapons and faster ships than anything humans had ever seen. "Jake, we need you back here now," Lisa said through the communication link. "Bring every ship you can find, because this is bigger than we thought. Intelligence says these aliens have conquered other species before, and they never lose." Jake gathered his small fleet of 8 ships and headed back to Earth as fast as possible. During the journey, more reports came in, and each one made the situation look worse. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrian Empire, and they had been watching humans for months before attacking. They knew exactly where every human colony was located, and they had planned this invasion perfectly. When Jake reached Earth, he went straight to the Orbital Command Center, where Admiral Carter was meeting with other military leaders. The room was full of worried faces and computer screens showing battle reports from across human space. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Hayes was standing at a large display explaining the terrible facts. "The Zephyrians have 50,000 warships, and we only have 8,000, Ryan said while pointing at numbers on the screen. "Their ships have energy shields that stop our plasma weapons, and they can talk to each other instantly across any distance. Our weapons barely scratch their armor, while their guns can destroy our biggest ships with one shot," Dr. Elena Rodriguez had been studying the alien transmissions, and she stood up to share what she had learned. She was the best scientist humans had for understanding alien life. And her news was not good. The Zephyrians were not like humans at all. They shared one mind across their entire species, and they made decisions as a group instead of as individuals. "They have conquered 17 other species in the last 100 years," Elena explained to the worried room. "Every species they fight falls within a few months because the Zephyrians never make mistakes, and they never change their plans. Once they start attacking, they use perfect coordination, and they learn from every battle." Admiral Carter looked around the room at all the military officers and scientists. Everyone knew the math was against them, but nobody wanted to give up. Humans had survived ice ages and world wars and alien diseases. They would find a way to survive this too. "We cannot fight them the same way they fight," Carter said to everyone. "They expect us to use standard military tactics, but humans have never been standard. We need to think of something they have never seen before." The first real battle happened at New Austin Colony, where Commander Thompson had only 12 ships to defend against 200 Zephyrian warships. Any normal military commander would have tried to form battle lines and fight in formation. But Thompson was not normal. He split his ships up and had them attack from all different directions at once. The Zephyrian ships tried to respond, but they seemed confused by the human tactics. They had been programmed to fight enemies that followed logical battle plans, but Thompson's ships were darting around like angry insects. Some ships would attack and then run away, while others would hide behind asteroids and ambush alien ships. Thompson's plan worked better than anyone expected. His 12 ships managed to destroy 15 Zephyrian warships before retreating. It was still a loss for the humans, but it was the first time anyone had hurt the Zephyrian fleet. More importantly, the alien ships had acted confused and unsure during the battle. When the battle reports reached Earth, everyone was surprised. The Zephyrians were supposed to be perfect fighters, but they had made mistakes when facing chaotic human tactics. Maybe the aliens were not as invincible as they seemed. Maybe their perfect coordination was actually a weakness when fighting an enemy that refused to follow any rules. Jake Morrison studied the battle recordings and noticed something important. Every time human ships did something unexpected, the Zephyrian response was delayed by a few seconds. It was like their shared mind needed time to figure out what the humans were doing. Those few seconds might be enough to save humanity if they could learn how to use them. Admiral Carter called another meeting, and this time everyone looked more hopeful. They still faced impossible odds, but now they had seen that the Zephyrians could be confused and hurt. The war was just beginning, but humans had learned their first important lesson. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to refuse to fight the way your enemy expects. 3 weeks had passed since the first battle, and the war was going badly for humanity. The Zephyrians had captured 8 human colonies, and their fleet was moving toward Earth like a giant metal storm. But Colonel Amy Watson had a plan that nobody else would have tried. Watson led a team of Special Forces soldiers who were experts at fighting behind enemy lines. They had stolen a small Zephyrian ship during a raid, and now they were flying it toward Kepler Station where the aliens kept their supplies. The plan was crazy, but Watson believed that crazy plans were the only ones that might work. "Remember, we are not trying to beat them at their own game," Watson told her team as they approached the alien station. "We are going to do things so strange that their computers will not know how to respond." The team included Sergeant Danny Clark, who was an expert with explosives, and Lieutenant Kate Miller, who understood alien technology better than most humans. They had painted their faces with bright colors and were wearing mismatched uniforms because Watson wanted them to look as unmilitary as possible. When they reached Kepler Station, the Zephyrian guards scanned their stolen ship and let them dock. Without any problems, the aliens trusted their technology completely and never expected anyone to steal their ships. Watson's team walked into the station acting like tourists instead of soldiers. The Zephyrian workers at the station were tall, gray creatures with large black eyes, and they moved in perfect synchronization like dancers. They did not pay attention to the humans because their shared mind told them that anyone flying a Zephyrian ship must be allowed to be there. Watson led her team to the main computer center while Danny Clark went to plant explosives in the fuel storage area. But instead of using normal military explosives, he had brought something special: fireworks from Earth that would create bright lights and loud noises that served no military purpose. When Clark started setting up the fireworks, the Zephyrian security system detected them but could not understand what they were for. The alien computers spent several minutes trying to analyze the fireworks and decide if they were weapons. This gave Watson time to reach the computer center. "Their whole system is based on logic and efficiency," Kate Miller whispered as she worked. "On the alien computers, everything they do has a clear purpose, so they cannot understand things that humans do just for fun." Miller started downloading random human files into the Zephyrian computer network. She uploaded cat videos and cooking recipes and love songs. The alien system tried to analyze all this information looking for military secrets, but there were no secrets to find, just humans being human. Meanwhile, Dr. Peter Chang was back on Earth, working with Admiral Carter to develop new ways to confuse the Zephyrian fleet. Chang was a psychologist who studied how minds work, and he had an idea about using human creativity as a weapon. "The Zephyrians share one mind across their entire species," Chang explained to Carter. "This makes them very efficient, but it also means they all think the same way. If we can confuse one part of their mind, we might confuse all of it." Chang started broadcasting human music toward the Zephyrian fleet, not military codes or battle plans, but jazz music and rock songs and classical symphonies. The alien ships received these transmissions, and their computers tried to find the hidden meaning in the music. The Zephyrian analysis systems worked for hours trying to decode human songs, but music does not have a logical meaning that computers can understand. It exists to make people feel emotions, and emotions are not logical. The alien computers started overheating as they tried to process something that could not be processed. Back at Kepler Station, Watson's mission was reaching its climax. Danny Clark had finished setting up his fireworks, and Kate Miller had uploaded thousands of human files into the alien network. Now it was time to leave, but Clark had one more surprise planned. Instead of just running away, Clark decided to let the Zephyrian guards surround him. This was not part of the plan, but Clark knew that the aliens expected humans to try to escape. So he did the opposite and walked right up to the guards with his hands up. The Zephyrian guards were confused because their training told them that enemies always try to escape when caught. They spent precious seconds trying to understand why. Clark was surrendering. Those seconds gave him time to trigger all the fireworks at once. The station exploded in a display of colored lights and loud music as hundreds of fireworks went off inside the fuel storage area. The Zephyrian computers had never seen anything like it, and they could not decide if it was an attack or a celebration. The confusion spread through their network like a virus. Watson and her team escaped during the chaos. But the real victory was not destroying the station. It was proving that the Zephyrian hive mind could be confused by human unpredictability. Word of the successful mission spread through the human fleet and gave everyone new hope. Captain Jake Morrison was commanding a battle group near Jupiter when he heard about Watson's mission. He decided to try similar tactics with his ships. Instead of fighting in formation, he had his ships spread out and attacked the Zephyrian fleet using completely random patterns. The USS Liberty, under Captain Morrison's command, had been modified by Chief Engineer Kate Miller, who had a revolutionary idea. Instead of making the ship stronger, she made it designed to break apart in battle. Each section could fight independently like a swarm of angry bees. When Morrison's ships attacked the Zephyrian fleet using these new tactics, the aliens responded slowly and made mistakes. Their perfect coordination became a weakness because they could not adapt quickly to chaotic human behavior. For the first time in the war, humans were winning more battles than they lost. The Zephyrians started changing their strategies to counter human unpredictability, but each change took time and resources. The alien hive mind was like a giant computer trying to solve a puzzle that had no solution. Every time they thought they understood human tactics, the humans would do something completely different. Admiral Carter realized that humanity's best weapon was not bigger guns or stronger armor, but their ability to be illogical and unpredictable. The Zephyrians had conquered 17 other species because those species fought logically. But humans had never been logical. And that might be what saves them. 6 months into the war, humanity had lost most of their fleet, but something strange was happening. The Zephyrian advance had slowed down, and their attacks were becoming less coordinated. Commander Susan Taylor noticed this first when she was studying battle reports from the front lines. Taylor had been a military intelligence officer for 15 years, and she knew how to spot patterns in enemy behavior. The Zephyrians were taking longer to respond to human attacks, and sometimes their ships would hesitate before following orders. It was like their shared mind was getting confused. "They have been recording everything we do," Taylor explained to General Frank Lewis during a strategy meeting. "Every time our ships attack, they analyze our tactics and try to predict what we will do next. But what if we could use that against them?" Lewis was an old soldier who had fought in 3 different wars, and he understood what Taylor was suggesting. If the Zephyrians were learning from human tactics, then humans could teach them the wrong lessons by feeding false information to their own forces. "You want us to lie to our own people," Lewis said with a smile. "Tell our commanders to do one thing while secretly planning something else. The aliens will record the wrong information and make plans based on lies." Taylor nodded and explained her idea, which she called Operation Paradox. Human commanders would be given fake battle plans while the real plans would be passed along through secret channels. The Zephyrians would intercept the fake plans and prepare for battles that would never happen. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had been studying captured Zephyrian technology, and she made an important discovery about how their hive mind worked. The aliens shared thoughts instantly across their entire species, but this created a serious weakness that humans could exploit. Their minds are like one giant computer, Rodriguez explained to Admiral Carter. They can process logical information very quickly, but random information causes errors in their system. If we flood their network with enough randomness, we might be able to crash their whole civilization. Rodriguez worked with Technical Sergeant Maria Santos to develop new weapons that fired information instead of bullets. They collected thousands of hours of human creativity, including music and art and poetry and jokes. Then they broadcast all of it toward the Zephyrian fleet at the same time. The alien ships received this flood of random human culture, and their computers tried to analyze it looking for military secrets, but there were no secrets in a child's drawing or a love song or a comedy show. The Zephyrian analysis systems started overloading as they tried to find logic in human creativity. Captain Joe Fisher was commanding the UES Defiance when his ship was badly damaged during a battle near Mars. All his weapons were destroyed and life support was failing. Any reasonable captain would have surrendered, but Fisher was not feeling reasonable. "If we are going to die anyway, let's make it count." Fisher told his crew, "Download everything from Earth's internet and prepare to broadcast it on all frequencies. We are going to give these aliens the biggest headache in galactic history." Fisher aimed his dying ship at a Zephyrian dreadnought and activated the ramming speed while broadcasting terabytes of random human information. The data stream included everything from scientific papers to social media posts to recipe collections. It was thousands of years of human thought compressed into one massive data burst. When the Defiance crashed into the alien ship, the information overload caused a cascade failure that spread through the Zephyrian network. 17 ships lost control of their systems and started drifting helplessly through space. The aliens had never experienced anything like it. General Lewis implemented Operation Paradox across the entire human fleet, and the results were better than anyone expected. Zephyrian ships started arriving at empty battlefields while human forces attacked undefended targets. The alien coordination was breaking down as they tried to process contradictory information. Commander Taylor discovered that different parts of the Zephyrian fleet were developing different strategies based on the false information they received. Some groups became overly aggressive, while others became too defensive. The perfect unity of the hive mind was starting to crack. Chang expanded his psychological warfare program and started broadcasting deliberately confusing human behavior toward the alien fleet. He sent recordings of humans laughing at things that were not funny and crying during happy moments and getting angry about trivial problems. The Zephyrian computers tried to understand human emotions, but emotions do not follow logical rules. Humans could be happy and sad at the same time or angry about something that happened years ago. The alien analysis systems could not process emotional information and started making errors. Admiral Carter realized that humanity was winning the war not through superior weapons, but through superior confusion. Every time the Zephyrians tried to understand human behavior, they became more confused. Their perfect logic was useless against human illogic. Captain Jake Morrison led a fleet action near Saturn, where human ships performed a coordinated attack that looked like modern art instead of military tactics. Ships moved in spirals and figure eights while broadcasting classical music. The Zephyrian response was delayed by several minutes as their computers tried to analyze the artistic formation. The war reached a turning point when the Zephyrian Empire sent their home fleet toward Earth carrying a superweapon called the Reality Engine. Intelligence reports said the weapon could impose perfect order on any chaotic system. But Lieutenant Sarah Kim discovered something important about how it worked. The Reality Engine needs perfect targeting data to function properly, Kim explained to the assembled human leadership. It analyzes chaotic systems and then reorganizes them into logical patterns. But what if the chaos is too complex for it to analyze? Kim proposed the most desperate plan yet attempted. Every human ship and station and colony would coordinate to create the most chaotic display possible. They would turn human unpredictability into an art form and see if they could overload the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. The plan required perfect timing, which was ironic since they were trying to create perfect chaos. But humans had always been good at organizing disorder. It was one of their most useful talents, and now it might be the thing that saves their entire species from extinction. 1 year into the war, the Zephyrian Empire made a critical mistake that would change everything. Frustrated by their inability to predict human behavior, they decided to create new computer programs designed to outthink human randomness. Admiral Carter realized this gave humanity a chance to turn the aliens' greatest strength against them. The Zephyrians had always relied on perfect logic and efficient planning, but now they were trying to become chaotic like humans. This was like asking a computer to become emotional or telling a robot to fall in love. It went against everything they were designed to do. Colonel Ben Wright led a special mission to capture a Zephyrian command ship, so humans could study how the alien hive mind was changing. His team included demolitions, expert Tracy Adams, and communications. Officer Greg Miller, they had trained for months using the strangest tactics ever developed. Wright's plan was based on something Dr. Chang called cognitive warfare. Instead of attacking with weapons, they would attack with pure weirdness. They practiced mime and interpretive dance and nonsense poetry until they could confuse anyone, including themselves. The team approached a Zephyrian command ship in a captured alien transport while performing an elaborate mime routine about being trapped in invisible boxes. The alien guards watched through their security cameras, and their computers tried to analyze what the humans were doing. "Remember, we are not trying to sneak past them," Wright whispered to his team. "We want them to see us, but we want them to be so confused that they forget to stop us." Tracy Adams started doing interpretive dance that was supposed to represent the life cycle of a butterfly, while Greg Miller recited poetry that made no sense at all. The Zephyrian security systems recorded everything and tried to find the hidden military purpose in their actions. The alien computers spent so much time analyzing the human performance that they delayed sounding the alarm until Wright's team had already boarded the command ship. The Zephyrians were becoming victims of their own need to understand everything logically. Inside the captured ship, the humans discovered something amazing. The Zephyrian hive mind was breaking apart into smaller groups that could not agree with each other. Different fleet segments were developing contradictory strategies as they tried to process human chaos. Some Zephyrian fleets had become overly aggressive and attacked everything they saw, while others had become so defensive they would not attack anything. Still others had entered endless analysis loops, where they studied human behavior without ever taking action. Dr. Chang used this information to develop targeted confusion campaigns. Teams of human artists and comedians and writers created absurd scenarios specifically designed to exploit the cracks in the Zephyrian hive mind. Each alien fleet segment received different types of nonsense that pushed them further apart. The Zephyrian response was exactly what Chang had hoped for. Instead of working together, the alien fleet started arguing with each other about the correct way to fight humans. Their perfect unity was being destroyed by their attempts to understand imperfection. Meanwhile, the reality engine was approaching Earth with the main Zephyrian fleet. Long-range sensors showed that the weapon was larger than a moon and surrounded by energy fields that could reshape matter at the atomic level. It was designed to bring perfect order to the chaos of human space. Lieutenant Sarah Kim worked day and night to understand how the reality engine functioned. She studied every piece of intelligence about the weapon and discovered that it had one critical weakness: it required perfect targeting data to work properly. The engine analyzes chaotic systems and then calculates how to reorganize them into logical patterns, Kim explained to a meeting of human leaders. But the analysis takes time and processing power. If we can overload its computers, we might be able to stop it. Admiral Carter looked around the room at all the military officers and scientists and artists who had gathered to plan humanity's last desperate defense. The plan they were developing was so crazy that it might actually work. "We need every human in the galaxy to participate," Carter announced. Every ship and station and colony will coordinate to create the most chaotic display in history. We are going to turn human creativity into a weapon. Captain Alex Turner volunteered to lead the suicide squadron that would attack the reality engine directly, but instead of using conventional weapons, his ships would perform elaborate flight patterns based on human art forms. They would turn space combat into the ultimate performance piece. Commander Nancy Foster would coordinate the ground-based operations, where human colonies would engage in massive synchronized acts of creativity. People would paint murals visible from space and perform musical compositions that spanned entire continents. The plan required millions of humans to work together to create perfect chaos, which was the most human thing anyone could imagine. They were going to fight the ultimate weapon of order, with the ultimate expression of disorder. Dr. Rodriguez calculated that the reality engine would try to impose logic on all this human creativity, but human imagination was infinite. While the weapons processing power was finite, it was like trying to count all the stars in the universe or measure the depth of human love. Jake Morrison looked out at the approaching Zephyrian fleet and felt something he had not felt in months. Hope. Humanity was about to attempt something that had never been tried before. They were going to weaponize their own beautiful chaotic nature. The Zephyrians had conquered 17 species by overwhelming them with superior logic and perfect coordination. But they had never faced a species that could turn their greatest weakness into their greatest strength. Humans were about to show the galaxy that sometimes the best way to win is to embrace the chaos, as the reality engine charged its weapons and prepared to impose order on human space. Millions of people across the galaxy began the greatest coordinated act of randomness in history. They were going to fight perfect order with perfect chaos and see which force was truly stronger. The reality engine hung in space like a mechanical moon, preparing to end human civilization forever. Its energy fields were charging, and Admiral Carter knew they had only hours before the weapon would fire. Across the galaxy, millions of humans prepared for the most desperate plan in military history. Captain Alex Turner led his suicide squadron toward the massive weapon, while his ships began performing flight patterns that defied every rule of space combat. The USS Freedom spun through barrel rolls while broadcasting ballet music. The USS Harmony flew in figure eights while its crew sang folk songs. Turner's pilots had trained for weeks to fly like artists instead of soldiers. They moved through space like dancers interpreting music that only they could hear. Their formations looked like aerial sculpture that told the story of human dreams and hopes and fears. Reality engines' targeting systems tried to track the human ships, but the flight patterns made no logical sense. The weapons computers analyzed every movement looking for tactical significance, but there was no strategy to find, just humans expressing themselves. Through the art of Flight Commander Nancy Foster coordinated the ground operations from Earth's surface, where every human colony was participating in the greatest creative explosion in history. Entire cities became canvases, as millions of people painted murals that could be seen from orbit. Children drew pictures of their families, while artists created abstract masterpieces that represented pure emotion. Musicians played symphonies that spanned continents, while poets recited verses that captured the essence of being human. Every person on every world contributed their own small piece to humanity's final masterpiece. The Zephyrian fleet surrounding the reality engine watched in confusion as human space erupted in a festival of creativity. Their sensors detected no weapons or military significance in the displays, but their computers could not stop analyzing what they saw. Dr. Elena Rodriguez monitored the alien communications from her station on Earth and reported that the Zephyrian hive mind was experiencing system overload. Different fleet segments were receiving contradictory data as they tried to process billions of simultaneous acts of human creativity. Their shared consciousness is fragmenting, Rodriguez announced to the command center. Each fleet group is developing independent analysis patterns, and they are starting to contradict each other. The reality engine began its attack sequence, but something was wrong. The weapons targeting computers were receiving too much data to process efficiently. Every human creative act generated millions of data points that the engine tried to analyze and categorize. Sarah Kim watched the weapon's energy readings from her console and saw that the charging process was taking longer than expected. The reality engine was designed to impose order on chaos, but it had never encountered chaos on this scale. "It's like trying to organize infinity," Kim reported to Admiral Carter. "The weapon keeps calculating how to reorganize our displays into logical patterns, but every time it finishes one calculation, we generate 10 new creative acts for it to analyze." The battle reached its climax when Turner's squadron reached the reality engine and began their final performance. Each ship represented a different aspect of human culture as they danced around the massive weapon in patterns that told the story of humanity's journey from cave paintings to spaceflight. The USS Freedom performed movements based on ancient tribal dances, while the USS Harmony traced the mathematical beauty of musical scales through space. The USS Liberty spun through aerial acrobatics that represented the joy of children at play. The reality engine's computers worked frantically to understand the meaning behind each movement, but there was no single meaning to find. The human ships were expressing the full complexity of human experience all at once. Technical Sergeant Maria Santos had coordinated the information warfare campaign that was broadcasting pure human culture toward the Zephyrian fleet. Every form of human expression, from cave paintings to digital art, was being transmitted simultaneously. The alien hive mind tried to process this flood of creativity, but human culture contained too many contradictions for logical analysis. Humans could create beautiful art about ugly subjects and find hope in desperate situations. Their emotions did not follow rational patterns. Commander Susan Taylor watched from the command ship as the Zephyrian fleet began showing signs of systematic failure. Some ships were flying in circles while others had stopped moving completely. The alien coordination was breaking down as their shared mind struggled to process infinite creativity. The reality engine reached critical overload when millions of humans across the galaxy began singing the same song at the same time. It was a simple melody that every human child learned, but it represented something that no computer could understand: the bond between all living conscious beings. The weapons analysis systems detected the coordinated singing and tried to calculate its tactical significance, but the song had no tactical purpose. It existed only to connect humans across vast distances and express their shared hope for survival. Dr. Chang realized that the reality engine was experiencing a cascade failure as it tried to impose order on something that was fundamentally beyond. Ordering human creativity was not chaos that could be organized, but rather a force of nature like love or hope or the desire for freedom. The weapon's energy fields began fluctuating wildly as its computers crashed and restarted repeatedly. Each restart brought new creative data that immediately overloaded the system again. The reality engine was trapped in an endless loop of trying to understand the incomprehensible. Captain Turner's ships completed their artistic formation around the dying weapon and broadcast one final message to the Zephyrian fleet. It was not a threat or a demand for surrender, but rather an invitation to join the celebration of consciousness and creativity. The reality engine exploded in a display of light and energy that looked like the birth of a new star. But the explosion was not destructive. Instead, it spread waves of pure creative energy that touched every ship in the Zephyrian fleet. For the first time in their species' history, individual Zephyrians began experiencing independent thoughts and emotions. The hive mind that had controlled them for millions of years was dissolving as each alien discovered their own unique perspective on existence. Admiral Carter watched the miracle unfold and realized that humanity had won the war not by destroying their enemies, but by liberating them. The Zephyrians were discovering what it meant to be individuals, and they were finding that freedom was worth more than perfect order. The war ended not with explosions or surrender ceremonies, but with something that had never happened before in galactic history: an entire species discovering what it meant to be free, The Zephyrian Empire collapsed in a single day as millions of aliens experienced individual consciousness for the first time. Admiral Jake Morrison now commanded the Liberation Fleet that visited former Zephyrian territories. Everywhere they went, they found the same amazing sight. Alien beings who had once moved in perfect synchronization were now exploring their own unique thoughts and feelings. On the planet Xerion Prime, Morrison met with Zek 47, who had been a Zephyrian fleet commander, but was now just Zek, an individual trying to understand his place in a universe that suddenly offered infinite possibilities instead of predetermined roles. "Your species taught us something we never knew existed," Zek said through a translation device. "We had perfect efficiency and logical coordination, but we never had hope or dreams or the joy of creating something beautiful for no practical reason." Morrison smiled as he watched young Zephyrians painting pictures and composing music. Their art was crude and simple, but it came from their hearts. Instead of their programming, they were learning to be imperfect and finding that imperfection was more interesting than perfection. Dr. Elena Rodriguez led scientific teams to study the remains of Zephyrian technology and made discoveries that changed human understanding of consciousness. The aliens had built machines that could share thoughts instantly, but they had never built anything that could imagine or dream. They had all the tools for perfect communication, but they never learned to communicate feelings, Rodriguez explained. In her report, they could share facts across light years instantly, but they never shared a joke or a love song or a moment of wonder at the beauty of a sunset. The former slave species that the Zephyrians had conquered were amazed to learn that humans had defeated the mighty empire not through superior weapons, but through superior creativity. Representatives from dozens of worlds came to Earth to learn about human culture. Ambassador Lisa Carter established diplomatic relations with 17 different species that were all trying to rebuild their civilizations after centuries of Zephyrian control. Each species brought their own unique perspectives on art and music and storytelling. The Crystalline Collective had been forced to think in straight lines for 300 years, but now they were rediscovering their natural ability to create beautiful geometric patterns. The hive builders were learning to construct buildings for beauty instead of just efficiency. Dr. Chang worked with alien psychologists to help former Zephyrian slaves deal with the trauma of losing their hive-mind connection many aliens experienced. Confusion and loneliness when they first became individuals, but they also discovered emotions like happiness and love. Individual consciousness is not easy. Chang explained to a group of newly freed Zephyrians, "You will feel sad sometimes, and you will make mistakes, but you will also experience joy and friendship and the satisfaction of creating something that is uniquely yours." The galaxy began changing in ways that nobody had expected. Trade routes that had been efficient under Zephyrian rule became chaotic as individual ship captains chose their own paths. But the chaos led to new discoveries and unexpected friendships between different species. Commander Nancy Foster helped establish the Galactic Creativity Council, which became a forum for different species to share their art and music and stories. The meetings were wonderfully disorganized as beings from different worlds tried to understand each other's forms of expression. Captain Alex Turner discovered that many former Zephyrian ships had been modified by their new individual crews. The aliens were painting their hulls with bright colors and adding decorative elements that served no practical purpose except to make their ships beautiful. On Earth, children attended schools where they learned alongside young aliens who were discovering creativity for the first time. Human teachers found that explaining imagination to beings who had never imagined anything was one of the most rewarding challenges they had ever faced. The former reality engine had been converted into a massive art installation that orbited Earth. Its energy fields now created beautiful light displays instead of imposing order. Millions of visitors came to see the weapon that had been transformed into a celebration of freedom. Lieutenant Chris Johnson was part of the new generation of officers. who patrolled a galaxy where perfect order had been replaced by beautiful chaos. His ship, the USS Imagination, carried diplomats and artists instead of weapons. Johnson often thought about how the war had changed everything. Humanity had started as the underdog facing impossible odds, but they had discovered that their greatest weakness was actually their greatest strength, the ability to be unpredictable and creative and gloriously imperfect. The galaxy had learned that diversity was stronger than unity, when unity meant giving up individual identity. Chaos was more beautiful than order, when order meant the death of imagination, and freedom was worth more than efficiency, when efficiency came at the cost of the soul. Young humans, growing up in this new galaxy, learned about the war in their history classes, but to them it seemed obvious that creativity would defeat rigid logic. They could not imagine a universe where beings would choose perfect order over the messy, wonderful experience of being truly alive. On the anniversary of the wars, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered on Earth to celebrate not just their liberation, but the principle that had made it possible, the idea that consciousness was meant to be free, and creativity was the highest expression of that freedom. Admiral Carter gave a speech to the assembled delegates where she reminded everyone that the victory had not belonged to any single species, but to the concept of individual dignity. Humans had simply been the first to weaponize their own beautiful chaos. The ceremony ended with a moment of silence for all the beings who had lived and died under Zephyrian rule, never knowing what it felt like to have an original thought. Then the silence was broken by music and laughter and the wonderful noise of free beings celebrating their freedom as Johnson looked out at the stars that night. He knew that the galaxy would never be perfect or efficient or completely safe, but it would be alive in ways that the Zephyrians had never understood, filled with beings who chose their own paths and created their own meaning in the infinite darkness of space.